arts museums, and our community members. Before I go any further with tonight's program, it is my honor and responsibility to acknowledge that our museum sits on land that is sacred to the northwestern band of the Shoshone Nation. It has been their stewardship for time immemorial to care for this land and all of its inhabitants. We honor the memory of their ancestors, their physical presence in our region today, and their resilience in preserving their connections to this place. We honor the people, we honor the land. It is a privilege to share the virtual stage with this panel of amazing Utah artists. Each of them will have an opportunity to speak about their work in this show and beyond, and then we will move on to an open discussion. If you have any questions during the presentations, please submit them in the comments section, and we will do our best to read them out during the Q&A period at the end of tonight's program. It is hard to believe that the last time we hosted the Plein Air Awards, it was in person with handshakes, refreshments, and a tour of strangers gathered close to hear Marianne share her insights on each piece. It was also my first exhibit event as the new director of museums. In light of everything that has happened since then, I am exceedingly grateful for this opportunity to celebrate the unique beauty of Utah's winter landscapes, which inject an element of perspective and serenity into our daily lives. For the second year in a row now, we ask the community to brave the Utah winter to create beautiful plein air representations of our treasured Mountain West. This year, the theme was Thrive 125 in honor of the statewide celebration of the 125th anniversary of Utah statehood. Each artist went out into the field to capture and convey all of the sensations of standing in the great Utah landscape. To better reflect on the exhibit and its impact, we are fortunate to have this year's juror with us tonight. I know he has a lot to say about this year's winners, as well as his own experience in Utah's artistic community. Russell Case is a renowned plein air artist and a regular participant in our plein air competitions. His artistic enthusiasm was first fostered by his father, Gary Case, who is also an artist. After graduating from Utah State University in 1990, and with the support of his wife, Suzanne, Case decided to dedicate himself to painting full-time. He believes plein air painting is a tool artists use to represent what they see in front of them. Being on location and painting on the spot gives the artists an opportunity to relay the atmosphere, the complexity of the landscape, through good compositional thinking of colors, shapes, and overall designs. With multiple honors and awards to his name over his 30-year career as an artist, Case is known for his ability to capture the Western landscape. His works are collected in museums throughout the West, including ours. Russell?
Well, thank you. I'd like to start by just saying what an honor it was to be asked to judge it. And these guys are great painters, and what a great show, and what a great place to have a show in northern Utah, and what a beautiful facility you have there, the Brigham City Museum. It's hard to judge, you know, you're so biased in, especially as a painter, in what you do and what you kind of like and how you think. And so let me just say that first off, but it was really fun to see what other people, other painters and other artists see around me, because I go out quite a bit right around here, and we're spoiled, by the way. What a great place to be an artist. But so it was fun to see what they were looking at, you know, and it's always interesting to and a way to grow when you see these things. So I'll just touch on my process real quick, and then I want to talk about kind of their work. But I usually start with, when I go out, I'll go out and I'll do small sketches or studies, I call them. They're on the spotters, and sometimes they develop into a finished painting that I can actually use. But most of the time, I'm just going out to get an idea and practice. Maybe bring back small impressions that might turn into bigger compositions in the studio. I'll go to some of those right now and just kind of give you an idea of the process. Usually what I'll do is start out with drawings, things like this. and they might not be this finished, but then I'll work into to small paintings. This is 11 by 14. There'll be 9 by 12, 8 by 10s. And like I say, a lot of times I'm not dealing with anything real complicated, but I'm just trying to get a feel, a design, a basic temperature of what's going on and composition, something I can bring back in the studio to possibly work up larger, or, and a lot of times I don't do that, but I just use the experience on location. But what I really wanted to focus on was kind of what I was seeing in their work, and what some jewels. I mean, when I was judging the show, I was looking. You know, it's hard to say this is what I judge by or look for, but I just look for an overall a picture that has the elements that you know, we compose with, especially composition, color, arrangement of color, and control of value. I think this is a really good example by Allen on design. I like the breakup of space. I also like the atmosphere. When I saw this by Sean, I just love the design too. I love the freshness of the color, even though the snow, there's some gray warms and things like that. I love the breakup. I love the contrast in warm and cools, and just the modeling of shape mostly. I also think this is a real sensitive little piece. What I liked about this, Kraig, was the subtlety and in the mixing of the grays. Those subtle colors are so sometimes hard to play with and get, but I think you're real successful in zeroing in on a compositional idea and then really looking at it to mold with those grays and those subtle nuances. It's really difficult to keep a painting together, hold it together in masses, but yet still show a lot of the subtleties. So anyway, that's kind of an idea of kind of what I was looking for, and what I saw and how I judged. How's that? Anything else you'd like to talk about?
That's great. Thank you very much. And we'll get more into that as each of the artists talk about their work, and then there at the end. Thank you, Russell. Just a quick housekeeping note for those watching. We are experimenting for the first time with closed captioning for this event. So I didn't realize that if you would like closed captioning, all you have to do is you do have to turn it on, but just click the gear at the bottom of the video that you're watching and you'll be able to turn it on that way. And I think we also did put those instructions in the chat. So hopefully if you're interested in that, I'm sorry that we didn't say that right at the beginning, but you should be able to have closed captioning from here on out. Moving on, we will hear from the painter of this year's first place winning entry, the appropriately named Best in Snow. Allen Brockbank's development as an artist was defined early in his home by his parents. His father was an outdoor enthusiast who led Allen on mountain climbs and backpacking trips across the American West. His mother was an accomplished watercolor artist with a love of the landscape who shared her experience with her young son. Allen went on to earn a fine arts degree from Brigham Young University, where he met his wife, Janice. They settled in Centerville, Utah, where Allen began his career in commercial art and computer game design. Over the next 20 years, Allen refined his artistic skills in the digital world, developing video games with fine companies like Disney, Microsoft, and Take-Two. It was during this time that Allen discovered the joys and challenges of landscape painting right in his backyard. Utah is a painter's paradise and a university for teaching the plein air artist. He believes that painting on location and in the studio are complementary pursuits, one building upon the other. Allen has won numerous plein air competitions and has work in our museum's permanent collection. Allen.
Hello, and thanks very much for this opportunity to chat with our video audience tonight. I'm greatly humbled to be the first place winner tonight, especially given the fantastic talent that's also been on display by my fellow competitors. One thing that I'm greatly appreciative about the Utah area and the heritage that we have here is the incredible competition and talent that is local. To have a judge like Russell Case come in and evaluate our work is an honor so great that I think most of the people in this area really don't understand or realize how awesome that is. We live in a very small pond in Utah that's full of very, very big fish, and again, I'm humbled by my fellow competitors. Marianne, if you could start us off with slide number 1. You've already seen this. This is my first place picture. I wanted to share the pieces that I entered in for this year's show. I can't tell. Is it up there? Oh, there we go. I'm seeing. There we go. So Russell already brought this one up. This was painted, for most people are probably familiar with this area. This is in the Heber Valley. It's the backside of Timpanogos. It's one of my favorite places to paint. And I just had a great day out there painting this. I'll have a picture of it in progress at the very end of the slideshow. Next slide. This piece is the other piece that I entered in for this show. This was painted up in the Logan Valley, up near, I think, Wellsville. It was a barn that's very iconic and very familiar. I loved the contrast of the reds with the snow, and it made for a fun outing. And the next slide. And this last one was my little 5x7 donation to the museum. This was painted up in the canyon up by Little Cottonwood Canyon, and just a little spot that I was able to climb up to, and the very deep snow, and have a nice little view. So those are the 3 pieces that I entered for the show. And I'd like to show the next couple of slides are some pieces that I've done recently. This one is a piece from down in Zion. It was a studio piece created from a small plein air sketch that I had done at the time. Next one. This one also was a piece from Zion as well. What attracted me to it. This one, I'm going to give credit to Mr. Case again. I attended a training course that he was lecturing on, and he talked about composing compositions in the dark. And since then, I've listened a lot to that advice, and trying to come up with compositions that rely on the dark to really make them work. And this is one that I was using his advice very specifically on. Next slide. And this also is one that I did recently in the studio, again, from a plein air piece that I had worked in earlier on. This is I believe in Long Canyon, down by Escalante, in the Escalante National Forest. Again, I love that glowing red rock, and red rock is one of my favorites to paint. Next slide. But we're asked to talk a little bit about our working method, and I come to my approach a little bit backwards, or at least I started backwards from what Mr. Case said. I started my career as a painter, primarily painting in plein air, and primarily trying to create finished pieces from plein air work. I didn't do much studio work at the time. And the more I've gone along, the more I've come to rely on the plein air pieces as my exercises and more sketches and that kind of a thing. And I've seen a lot more growth and benefit in my studio work, and more of a desire to let the plein air piece be a sketch rather than a finished piece. But I've been so used to painting in plein air, trying to create finished pieces, that I kept on tightening up and tightening up. And so I've been trying to loosen up and loosen up more. And one of the things tools that have helped me a lot recently is gouache. It's a opaque watercolor, and you can work it very quickly, and it has allowed me to free up a little bit in my brushwork and in my studies. So the next couple of pieces are some gouache pieces that I have. Next slide, please. Here's another one from down in the Zion area. It's gouache, and the gouache allows you to rework over and over, back and forth over painting areas very quickly, and is very forgiving. And so you can keep layering up your colors, knocking things back, bringing things forward as you paint that way, without any cost of, like with oils, the paint, you can get your paint building up more and more, and it gets thick and it gets greasy, and it gets harder and harder to work in. So I'm really enjoying the freshness that gouache allows me to do. One more. And here's the last one that's almost in my backyard. It's just a couple hundred yards from my home. That's one of the great things about painting in Utah is we've got such a great state that's so full, and we're so spoiled with all of the great places we have to paint, that you don't have to go very far to do much painting. Next slide. This is one of my little projects that I've just started. This was a Christmas present from my wife, my little plein air mobile. I mentioned that we were talking earlier how this year in the plein air in the winter it gets cold, and I'm getting older and I'm getting whinier about what I do, and I like to be comfortable. And so this is kind of stems from that. Next slide. I'm building a little mini studio that I can just open the back doors and look out the back and paint, and drive to where I want to go the next day and paint from that. Next slide. And when it's, we missed one, but that's okay. When it's really cold, like it was on this day that I painted now go to that one. Now that will work. When I go to, when it's cold, the weather's bad, or when it's really hot and the weather is uncomfortable, I like to be comfortable when I paint. And so I quite often will work from the dashboard like this one. My paints are off to the side, and it makes it for a nice and comfortable painting experience. I hope I haven't gone too long. I've really enjoyed this. So I'm going to turn the time over to the next in the process, and express my gratitude to the staff at the museum in Brigham City. I love you guys and appreciate the opportunities you've given me. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. We love you too. And I definitely want to see more pictures of that van. That is really cool. All right. Our second place piece, Rushing Waters, is by Sean Wallis. Sean learned to paint from his father, Kent R. Wallace. When Sean asked his dad to teach him to paint, he replied, "Get an outdoor easel because you learn to paint from life, not a photo." Ever since, plein air has been his passion. Sean teaches at the Center for Creativity, Innovation, and Discovery in Cache Valley and shows in galleries throughout the West. This is his second year entering our competition and his second year receiving one of the top awards. He will be doing a plein air based show in Tucson this April, and we'll make sure to put that information in the comments here. Sean?
Well, thank you guys so much. It's really an honor to be here, and I want to thank the museum for this honor, and I would really like to thank Russell Case as well It's a singular opportunity to have an artist of his caliber critique your work. And so that's always very appreciative. So thank you. Let me share my screen and I can show you guys some pictures as well. Let's see. Okay, so this is my, tell me, can you see it yet? Great. So this is my plein air setup. It's just a basic French easel. And then this is a palette that I built myself because I didn't want to spend the money to buy the big one. And so it's just a pine box with 2 hinged sides, and then some glass there with my paints on it for mixing because the glass is just easier to clean. And so yeah, I started my art journey in plein air. Like was already stated, I asked my dad to teach me how to paint, and he basically said, well, let's go outside. So we started this journey where we went outside together every Saturday from 2005 to 2015, when health concerns for my dad, unfortunately, kind of got in the way. And then after that, life just kind of got in the way. But for 10 years, we went out together every Saturday. Here's a picture of my old man in a farmer's field. And so, yeah, we still try to get out as often as we can in the summer months, but not so much in the winter anymore. But yeah, so I started doing this right off the get-go. And I think that was a really great way to learn how to paint, because I learned how to interpret color and value through my eye and not through the eye of a camera. And so I think that's lended to my style, if you will. And so, yeah, here's the real-time painting of my piece that is in the show. It's dark now, but I promise when I was painting, it was sunny. But yeah, I was telling these guys all earlier that they know what it's like to be outside painting, and you get in the zone, and the only thing in front of you is your painting and the scene, and you get really focused, and then you finish the painting and you realize you can't feel your toes anymore. So that's something that's fairly unique to winter plein air painting. But what a great experience, and what a fun little piece. It was just, this is a favorite place of mine, up Logan Canyon. And I like it because it's kind of where all these little creeks meet right up there by Second Dam. And so it seems like in the winter, you've got 1,000 different paintings all around you. And so I just picked a spot where I was fairly off the beaten path, kind of had to hike through the snow a bit to get to it. But then when I got set up to paint, it was just me and the sound of the water. And I just don't know if there's anything better than being out in nature painting. So yeah, that's pretty much my process for plein air painting. I've always been inspired by the Utah landscape. It will always be what I come back to. And I paint other scenes that galleries enjoy and sell well. I've got a great gallery down in Tucson, so I paint a lot of desert scenes, but I think top for me will always be the Utah landscape. And Alan, I love the painting of the barn that you did. I've painted that barn, I think, 3 times myself. The minute it popped up, I was like, oh, I know right where to get to that one. So you did a great job with that. Here's a couple just examples of what I've been doing recently. I love the Utah rural landscape. So I've been trying to push into my rural Utah landscapes this idea of light. And so I've really been trying to play with the subtle shadows, and especially the light that can be created through stormy skies. And I really like this piece because everything is in shadow. You've got a storm impending up top, but then the sun just lights up the autumn mountains behind. And those are the kind of things that I really look for. that I think are just singularly Utah. This is a great little silo out in Richmond, Utah. I was just driving my car one day and I came around a corner and I saw that and I had to jump out and take a bunch of photos of it. But again, just playing with the light, the storm behind where the sun has lit the face of the silo, making it stand out, giving it that stark contrast. And so, yeah, that's kind of my process, and that's really what I've been working on lately. It's really an honor, and I can't thank you guys enough. I love being part of this show. I love how professionally you guys run the show. I love the awards ceremony. I love getting to mingle with other Utah artists and see their interpretations of this amazing landscape. So just thank you so much.
Thanks, Sean, and hopefully by this time next year we'll actually get to mingle for the awards ceremony.
Right.
Third place this year went to Kraig Jardine for his piece January Sunshine. Kraig started drawing at an early age when his mother gave him his first brush. He soon earned a reputation as an artist from his peers. His fourth grade class gathered around his desk as he worked on an aerial view of a snowball fight. Kraig was invited to join a 4-H oil painting class. He remembers getting up early Saturday morning, receiving lessons and painting with his peers at the Salt Lake County Fairgrounds. In 9th grade, he was sought out by the art teacher and invited to enroll in an oil painting class. He enjoyed the creative process and learned by doing. He continued to take art classes throughout high school with great art teachers. He won a ribbon at the high school art show and later sold the painting to his art teacher. A favorite memory was going to the elementary school and painting for the kids. He set up his easel in the gymnasium and the kids lined up in a long line and took turns watching him paint. The mountain landscape painting turned out quite well, and Kraig gave the painting to his father, who had it framed and hung it on the wall in the house where it has stayed for 40 years. Today, Kraig is having fun making and sharing his art. He works full-time as an engineer and finds time to get outside and paint the landscape. Kraig?
Well, thank you very much. I am very honored to be part of this tonight. I am very grateful for all of the talented artists that have shared their work with us at the show, and really appreciate getting to know some of the other artists that have participated. I really enjoy going to the Brigham City Museum and seeing all of the work there. I've been there several times since the show has opened, and it's been really fun to be part of art, and I do that quite a bit in my spare time. And if my family could testify, they would certainly say that. So maybe I could share my screen and show you a few of my my pictures here. I hope you can see my screen. I'll just show you a picture that I painted last night. I tried to take a picture with my iPhone on the easel, and I'm trying to, develop as an artist. So what you need to do is you need to keep working at it, right? So this is what's fun for me, is I can kind of choose my path and identify things of interest to me. That painting I just showed you was taken from a plein air piece that I did a few weeks ago. And here's a couple of the plein air pieces that I painted last month that were not entered into the show, but they were really fun to do, and they required a lot of perseverance because you had to go and dress up for the cold and go stand outside and paint. And these paintings don't take very long after an hour, hour and a half, you're so cold, you need to expedite and get them done. So these paintings were done all outdoors in about an hour and a half each. And they required a lot of ingenuity, I think, in trying to get the paint on, because it's difficult to paint over the top of some color once it's in place. So my goal is to really put down the color once and leave it. And so it's something that I'm developing. This is a picture of some of the paints I use. I've taken over my old fishing tackle box to organize some of my colors. When I go out painting, I usually take my pickup truck and throw my stuff in the back. That's for convenience. If I can find a spot near the where I can drive to, I usually do that. For my plein air kit, this is a bag that I found. Hopefully you can see that okay. It's just a inexpensive backpack that I found over at Walmart. It's quite large and it holds all my stuff quite well. And I usually put it all in there. It's kind of a derivative from my times of backpacking out in the mountains. Yeah, and so I use that backpack and I fill it with all this stuff. So these are the essentials that I have in there. I have a tripod, which I can mount this box on the right on top of this tripod, and it's very standard, like Sean and Allen were showing earlier. I have this other little box I made to put in my wet paintings that can hold some of the small panels. They're 8x10s I usually use. I can put 8 of them in there. I don't usually do 8, but on a good Saturday I can get 3 or 4 of them done. Here's another little painting. I think I showed this one already. And sketching is very important. I think just getting out with your pencil, paper. It's really fun to do. There's many different things you can do with your pencil. And you can also do these little tiny sketches. These are some kind of practice paintings, little paintings of developing of colors. And I painted this one, the top left. We have this, we used to have a lot of concerns with the railroad switch yard in Brigham, and I developed some compositions surrounding that one time, and I thought that would be fun to do. And then I've been out to the bird refuge, working on some landscapes out there. I really enjoy the Utah environment, the beautiful landscapes, and I have lived in many different places across the country. And I really love the mountains, and I really appreciate that. I have some places to put my paintings. Usually when I go out do plein air painting, there's lots of different, I end up with a lot of wet paintings, and so I have to have a place to put them while they dry. Anyway, it's been kind of fun to develop these plein air pieces, what you call on the spotters or on location paintings. Sometimes they turn out amazingly well, I guess, from my opinion. Anyway, I really enjoy some of them, and I learn from each one of them. So I think it's really important to take where you are as an artist and start there. Identify some goals. I think the most important goal is just start doing it. Just start doing more of your art. My family's my biggest fan base. I really enjoy. They always love a lot of the things I do, and I really appreciate that. Many of them have come over to the museum, have enjoyed seeing some of the pieces there, and it's been really fun to have that interaction. And anyway, I guess that's my spiel. So anyway, grateful to be here. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. And on that point, this is your first year entering, is that right, for our
Yeah.
show?
Yes.
Okay, so you can take that to heart. You can always get started. You can always start participating, and our annual competition is a good way to do that. And you never know what'll happen. You might be at the next awards ceremony.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to also acknowledge our Merit Award winners, Barbara Brandenburg, Bradley Williams, and Joan Ellisworth. And of course, all of the artists in this year's show that made Russell's decision so difficult. We deeply appreciate their willingness to embrace the idea of working in plein air during the coldest months. The works they've produced for this show are worthy representations of the beauty of our landscape and the talent of our artists. So now's the time we're going to turn to a couple of questions, and these are open to all of you, panel style. There are certain topics that often come up when guests come through the exhibit. Many people want to know what the biggest difference is in your mind between the experience of working in plein air versus working in a studio. Anyone can take this.
For me, the biggest difference between plein air and studio painting is simply when you're painting in a studio, your subject never changes. When you're painting plein air, you have about an hour before the light has moved enough that you have a choice of either being done or chasing that light. And sometimes you can get chasing shadows and repaint them 50 times. So for me, the biggest difference between painting outdoors and painting indoors is the scene. Whether it's the fact that it can change on you quickly, or you're seeing color and shadow with your eyes. There's no camera interpreting it. So I think that's, for me anyway, the biggest difference.
Completely agree. Being able to see into the shadows and see the stuff that just turned black in a camera, seeing into the light where quite often gets burned out with your camera. Live is just so much better for that. You also mentioned that 1 hour period of trying to paint within that allotted time period. That can be both a blessing and a curse for me. It forces you to work so fast that your work retains a certain freshness when you do it right, but it also can doom you to failure because you keep trying to keep up and go so fast can lead to some problems in your work. You don't think things through completely the way you'd like, and you don't get the chance to develop it. You respond much more intuitively and quickly rather than being able to approach things slowly and carefully, which is one of the things I like about studio work. I like it in the plein air environment, but sometimes it works against me.
Do you have one kind of particular medium you all like to work in, certain type of location do you like to paint, or do you find you like to vary it up more?
Well, I know I like to stick with oil mostly. In locations, I like to repeat, sometimes go back and work for kind of the same view. And now that I've been there once or twice, I can eliminate a lot of things I don't want in there. It's kind of easier to compose sometimes to repeat, but mostly for me, it's oil now. I used to be watercolor quite a bit, but everything's oil.
Same for me. I prefer oil.
I agree. I enjoy oil a lot. Although, like I said, gouache has been a helper in that doing something quick and spontaneous.
Yeah, I like the oil myself, but I also see the value of trying other things like the gouache that Alan mentioned. I think I've been doing some watercolors that's really helped me to develop some of my spontaneity.
Very good. Yeah, and I know, Russell, you and I had a conversation about oil and kind of the, not just the use of it and the ease of use but also the salability of it. So I thought that was very interesting. Another question that I wrote down, and not to put any of you individually on the spot, but I couldn't help but notice in the past year, nearly all of our top winners and judges for these art shows have been female, all of our panels. This time, while 2 women did receive merit awards, our panel is fully male. Do you see this? Is that a reflection of patterns that you see in the art world and in oil painting in general?
What do you think, Kraig?
Well, when I've attended training sessions, there seems to be a lot more of women in my training classes. So I think there's a lot of interest, a lot of participation.
I recently participated in an event down in Santa Fe, and there was some conversation about how many women were in events versus men. And one woman was saying, yeah, it's been really hard to break into the show. And so I consciously went and counted in the show, and there was 56 artists and 48 of them were women and 8 of us were men.
It's definitely very interesting, and part of it, I mean, there's such a thing as coincidence, and also we did a quilting show, which is certainly heavily represented in female, but just something I noticed and had to ask about. Another question that I had and has been coming up in the comments is, what has this all been like during COVID? Do you find you have more time to paint or less? Do you find there are fewer places to exhibit and sell?
Yeah, shows got canceled all through the year. I don't know if that was your guys' experience, but I had quite a few shows and galleries get canceled. But you know, I feel like it has grown the world of online art buying. People who wanted to collect through COVID times have had to kind of like go out on a limb there and buy a piece of art online. But I think people are getting more comfortable with that because when COVID first hit, I saw a dip in sales. And then towards the end of 2020, I saw things rise back up through the galleries and everything. As far as painting plein air, you know, it's one of the great activities that COVID couldn't take from us. we can all go get lost in the woods by ourselves for a couple hours.
Yeah, a lot of the shows, most of them got put online or that I was involved with, so that everything went virtual. But you know, I told somebody I've been practicing social distancing my whole life, so it didn't affect a whole lot of the way I worked, other than like Sean says, some of the shows weren't in person. But you know, it really didn't affect. It kind of helped the sales where I am, because it seemed like a lot of the people weren't wanting to go to Europe. They weren't want to travel. They were staying home. They were looking at their walls. And I think a lot of them were saying, hey, we've been meaning to deal with this space. Maybe it's time. And so maybe that was some. I think in general, it would be different, you know, across the board, wherever you are and how you work and what you do. But you know, I've seen a real generous time during the COVID season.
Well, that's good to hear. Even with shows canceled, there's still opportunities, and I love that. Yeah, it's been practicing social distancing. That's a great line. What else did I want to ask? So, I mean, the people watching are probably interested in getting involved in this kind of thing. Kraig, you touched on it a little bit, but are there any groups or guilds you guys are involved in? And also just kind of what words of encouragement would you give to somebody who's thinking about diving into doing this more actively?
Like you mentioned, Elena, I've talked about this a little bit. I think you can just go down to the art store and pick yourself up some paints and some brushes, and there's a lot of people you could talk to. You know, the people here on this online here tonight's probably be willing to offer some suggestions. I really think there's also a lot of information out on social media. Personally, I like to I guess learn by watching maybe a video or talking to somebody, but learn by doing as well. So you gotta get yourself some information from you know, it could be from any source, but once you get it, then you got to go implement it, go practice it. And then you need to get somebody to give you some suggestions on improvement. You need to have somebody to critique it, and sometimes your own worst, you might be a very good at critiquing your own, or being critical of your own, and sometimes that may not be what you need. I think if it demotivates you, be real careful about that. But yeah, just get out there, just start somewhere, and you'll find you'll start having some good experiences with it.
I agree with what Kraig said very much. Just getting out there and trying it. Everybody says that, you know, it requires an immense amount of talent to be an artist, and I disagree a bit with that statement. I think it's a truly talented artist. Maybe it's a little bit easier for them than everybody else, but it's just like any other skill that you learn, whether it's music or whether it's being a doctor, or whether it's, you know, whatever the skill is, it's something that you practice and you work at, and you don't expect the first one you turn out is going to be a masterpiece. But like Kraig said, get some videos, get some friends, get somebody that you know that knows how to paint, and go out and try it. And don't be afraid if your first one falls flat on its face and it looks awful. My first 10 looked awful, and that's okay. You don't necessarily have to share them with everybody, but I also find that people are really nice, and they are very encouraging, and you know, get your friends, show your friends your efforts, and it's just get out there and try it, because it is a lot of fun. It is very rewarding activity. It gets you closer to nature, and that expressing yourself is a good thing. It's a good thing for your soul and for your spirit.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Alan's saying, one of my favorite quotes is, "Talent looks a lot like hard work," because really that's what it is. And coming from my situation where I've got a dad who's a painter and a brother who's a painter. And, you know, people meet me and they're like, oh, isn't it great to inherit all this talent? And I think to myself, oh, the mud I've made. If you could only see the stack of paintings in my basement that will never see the light of day, you'll understand that you're not born doing this, but you can be born with the love of doing it. And if you love doing it, you'll do it. And if you do it, you'll get better at it.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that maybe is look at good things. Find those things that are inspiring to you and make sure you're looking at the very best things you can. Travel, look at museums, look at paintings, and think about what you're doing. I think a lot of times we repeat the same problems over and over, and then get some good instruction. I know when I started, I switched over from watercolor to oil. Watercolor is basically backwards the way I treated it, from light to dark, and oil's dark to light. And so I was trying to paint oil like I painted watercolor. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just go take a workshop. Find those people, I mean, that you like their work, and see if they're teaching. Like I took from Matt Smith, Skip Whitcomb. Those are two of the better ones in the country. We're still painting avidly and teaching right now. And there's others, there's a lot, but seek them out, and then go listen and see and look what they're doing and apply it. I tell a lot of my students to go outside and work for a week. And when you get done out there, don't be scraping it off. Bring it in, set it up, and just have a show in a month and look at them and see what you're doing. And then try to look at the things you like, what you're getting, and you can see that are working, and keep implementing that, and keep trying to weed out these problems, and then look at good work again. Like Kraig was saying, that you just got to get out and get your hands dirty. You get your stuff, get good gear, get simple gear. Some of these guys have shown you their painting rigs, and if you're not set up simply to get out and work quick, or easy, you won't do it a lot of times, And the other great thing about plein air painting is you always can go to lunch, right? You go out and you got a great excuse to go eat. So get out there and work, and find some friends that want to go with you. And you can always go to lunch, no matter how much paint you miss, you lose.
So true.
Those were all the really good, very inspirational. I'm going to hop now over to the viewer comments, because it was so good that you're going to get yourself in trouble. Somebody asked if any of you offer lessons, or maybe want to give us some links later to recommend people who do, who we can send them along to.
I'll do workshops once in a while, maybe yearly, and they'll be on my website if I do, or through the Scottsdale Artist School.
I do workshops occasionally. The only one I have scheduled for this year is during the Escalante Arts Festival. I believe the dates are the 14th through the 16th of September.
So hopefully we'll be doing that this year, right?
Yes.
And then I want to jump a really great technical question from the comments that I actually have thought about myself. And maybe Sean, you could start with this one, because I've thought about yours. Do you vary the color that you see in nature to kind of something you choose, something kind of stylized? How do you approach color in your piece, from what you see to what you put on the canvas?
It really depends on the scene. Sometimes I seek out what colors I want in a painting. Like the winter scene, I seek out those red reeds that grow up near the river, because it brings that pop of warmth and color into a winter scene. As far as applying color to my paintings, I generally mix it as I see it. And then occasionally, if I look at the color, I'll do, you're talking to someone who doesn't know any of the technical terms because I learned how to paint on back roads with my dad. But I say I look at the color and I just make it pretty. So I'll mix a color that is fairly accurate to what I'm looking at. And then, you know, if it's not something that I think is going to jive with my piece, I just make it pretty. Something that helps you do that is do some color studies. There's some books out there, some workshop books that can give you simple scenes to paint where you simply just work through different color schemes like monochromatic, analogous, split complementary, these different color arrangements. And really, they do a good job of teaching you how to have color harmony in your paintings, and also where you can push color to be brighter and bolder, because that's a big part of it too. At least for me, because I love working with color. And so for me, if I can push that color to be bolder and brighter, but still look natural, I'm going to do that.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
I have lots of thoughts about color. I think I strive to be very accurate in my color. I also find that my natural inclination is to be very colorful. Your eye, when you sit and study, quite often exaggerates the color. And so the more I've painted, the more I've tried to control that color and paint really what I'm seeing as accurately as I possibly can. And now I'm kind of circling back around in the other direction and wanting to get a little bit more interpretive and artistic in the way I express my color. To still keep it very, very natural, but feel okay about accentuating it a little bit and taking those liberties to carry forth the message that I want my piece to have in the end, and have that carried more completely by using color to help interpret that.
And then we'll do one last question, because I promised I'd let you all get on with your lives after about an hour, but kind of sticking with that, people are very interested in the technical. I think this is a technical question. Where do you start when beginning the painting? Like, what's the foundation?
Well, I would just say it's the big shapes and the light and dark. I think if you took a Sharpie pen and took a piece of paper, drew a 2x2 inch square on it, and design an interesting shape on there, and try to make it match in some way what you're looking at, I think that's a good way to start, to get something interesting. And then you can adjust that color. Instead of black, you can add other values, grays and things, and then color. I think that's the beginning for me, if I analytically think about it.
Yeah, definitely. For me, the beginning is about composition. And I think that's exactly what Kraig was talking about. You look for your big shapes and how they move through your scene, how they support each other. And once you've got a good composition, the rest is just, adding in what you want and taking out what you don't.
That's all super great and helpful, and we may be reaching out to you if people ask more questions. People are eager to hear more about your process, but like I said, we've hit that 7 o'clock mark. I want to thank our artists again so much for sharing their time and expertise with us tonight, and I want to thank those of you who joined us via Facebook Live. If you missed any part of this program or would like to watch the recording, it will be available on the Brigham City Museum's Facebook, YouTube, and web pages. If you are watching this recording after the fact, you can still add comments and questions below. Like I was saying, we will continue to monitor and respond to them. Made me lose my notes. Please make sure to check out the links provided by the artists. We'll make sure to put plenty of links into where you can see their work, and follow them on Instagram and all of those good things. As I said at the beginning of our event, you can see this show now through April 10th. We are open Tuesday through Saturday. Admission is free and guided tours are available on request. For those not able to visit in person, a virtual 3D walkthrough of the exhibit will be available after it closes. A tour of this year's quilt and photography show are on our website now, and we will be sharing the tour of our recent craft and design competition as soon as we have the final version, so watch this space. We encourage you to take advantage of this safe, socially distanced option to view these wonderful artworks. Our next exhibit will be an illustration showcased, followed by the ever popular International Art Quilt exhibit. We are also currently accepting student artwork from across the state for our pandemic initiative called Make History. If you are interested in more information on these exhibits or how to get involved in future competitions, please reach out to us. You can follow the Brigham City Museums on social media for up-to-date information on more upcoming programs, both online and in-house. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the majesty and artistry of the Utah landscape. Good night and be well.
Thank you.